Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? With the Hall of Famer, my dad, Tim Kurkjian. I am his son, Jeff Kurkjian. And yesterday we had a 10 out of 10 guest. Jim DeShays was hilarious, Dad.
And insightful, too. That's what we do on this show, Jeff. We laugh and we learn. We learned and we laughed with Jim DeShays.
He was a great time. If you missed it on the feed, you just got to go back one episode. We're giving you 3 episodes a week, including an interview on Wednesdays. So make sure if you missed it, go back and check it out. Dad, before we jump into baseball, we have had quite the strange interaction with one of our members of our family, which is what we call our listeners, right? His name is Joshua, okay? Joshua sent me a picture on Instagram to our @GreatGameOrWhat account, right? That's our official podcast account. If you don't follow us, you should do so. And it's a picture, Dad, of a framed poem written. The masthead of it is Tim Kurkjian, Dallas, Texas, your address in Dallas. The date is September 15th, 1992. So before I was even born. And it's called the Possum Response Poem. Love, Kathy, Tim, and Kelly, my oldest sister, who would have been 1.5 at the time. And he said he got this, Dad, at a North Carolina thrift shop. This framed poem signed by you, Mom, and my sister. He found this at a thrift shop, and he said, hey, I would love for you to shed some additional light on this. And my first question was, what is that? Where did you get that?
All right. Well, let me try to explain, Jeff. I couldn't remember anything about this poem, and neither could Mom. So we sent it out to all our friends and family. Can anyone shed any light on this? And Allison O'Brien, our dear friend from the Beach Crowd, she and her husband, Doug, bought a second home, and they needed a name for the second home. So apparently I came up with the idea of playing possum, and they ended up using part of that and calling their second home, I believe, Possum Kingdom. So Mom wrote a poem about this. Just shows you, Jeff, you married Emily Rios. I married Emily Dickinson, apparently, because Mom wrote a poem about this. And I had lost track of the poem. I forgot about it. Mom forgot about it. And if it weren't for Allison O'Brien, the mystery would continue. So it's finally solved.
Well, and he said he bought it because he recognized, obviously, your name. He said, I said, when did you get this? He said, about 2 weeks ago. It was ... not expensive.
Nor should it be. I mean, it's not the greatest poem in the world, and it was confusing, and we couldn't figure it out. But thank goodness we figured it out. We can move on from here.
Another strange connection to Joshua Bartlett, who's the one who bought it. He grew up in Maryland, Dad, and he grew up watching you cover or reading you covering the Baltimore Orioles. And then he found himself in North Carolina, found himself at this thrift shop in Winston-Salem, and ends up buying this frame. Now, he wouldn't tell me how much it was. I finally gave him an answer, and he says, does this have sentimental value for your family or for the lake owners? So I don't know if he's trying to get me to name a price, but do you want me to try to get it from him, or are you like, I'm good?
I'm good, Jeff. With all due respect to our dear friends, the O'Briens, that's not something we need hanging in my office, okay? Or in our house. We have enough stuff in our house. I hope I didn't offend anyone with that.
No, I just thought it was funny that Mom was going around texting all these family members and friends, hey, who did we give this to? Also, why is it in a thrift shop? Clearly, they didn't like the poem very much.
Well,
I'm just kidding. Things get shuffled around in the world, and things get shipped in boxes and pushed in piles that they're not supposed to be. So that's how I'm going to justify it, at least for now. Dad, should we jump into the takeaways of what's going on in the world?
Yeah, there's a lot going on this week. Your boy, Kyle Schwarber, who could beat you in a race running backwards right now if he wanted to, hit his 300th career home run, Jeff. It's a pretty nice milestone for one of the really good power hitters in the game and one of the great leaders that I have ever been around. he passed 24 different players on the home run list this season to get to 300. And then, of course, the next game he hit number 301. But included on that list, Rusty Staub, Jimmy Wynn, Bobby Bonilla, Kent Herbeck, Will Clark. None of those guys hit 300 home runs. And those guys are all really good hitters. So the point is, let's not sneeze at 300 homers. It's pretty darned impressive. And Kyle Schwarber, from what I can tell, he's got a lot more coming too. Agreed?
Yeah. How many cups does Kyle Schwarber have nailed in his garage like Kent Herbeck did?
Right. Well, we have to tell the story when Kent Herbeck retired. He took his protective cup and nailed it to the wall in his garage. And I called him like almost 30 years later for a story I was doing. And he told me that cup is still hanging on the wall of his garage. These are only stories that could happen in baseball. Ken Herbeck, all-time best. The Orioles continue to struggle. 8 straight losses through Tuesday, 15-32 record. And I know this isn't much, Jeff, but last year I told you they grounded into the fewest double plays in Major League history in a 162-game season with 71. And they're already over halfway there. Now, they're not terrible this year because they're grounded into so many double plays, but it just shows you just what a systematic failure this has been. And Mike Elias, the general manager, finally, addressed the firing of Brandon Hyde. It took him 3 days to do that. It was a bit curious. And by the way, Jeff, I got a chuckle out of it. I read the headline and it says Elias finally addresses Orioles' woes. And for a split second, I thought it was Frank from the Elias was asked to do that. But that is Mike Elias's last name.
Right.
Same spelling. And Orioles are in trouble, as we told you last week.
Well, it's funny, Dad, because Jerry McMullen, a member of the family, right, who messaged us on social media, he said, first, love the podcast. I listen to it each day it drops. Thank you so much, Jerry. And he said, question for Tim or for Elias. Now, I'm not sure which Elias he meant here. The Orioles fired manager Brandon Hyde, marking the third manager fired this season. Have we ever seen 3 managers fired this early into a season? Thanks, and I'll listen off air.
Yes, we already knew this. I should have used it a couple days ago. But in 2002, Tony Muser, Buddy Bell, and Phil Garner all got fired before the month of May. So we have 3 fired before the month of June. But it just shows you again, Jeff, GMs, and they're not fooling around anymore. Teams have to win. And if you don't win, you're going to lose your job. And in Brandon Hyde's case, he did not deserve to be fired. Sometimes you need a different voice, obviously. But yeah, it's happened before. But thanks for the note and thanks for the question. All right. Also, Jeff, we had another official scoring snafu this week. Michael Duca was the official scorer. I hope I pronounced that properly. In Kansas City, Chris Bubick was pitching for the Royals, and they scored the ball in a 6th inning. Originally, they scored it an error on Michael Massey, second baseman, who slipped while trying to get to it. And soon after, the official score changed it from an error to a hit. And that's how Chris Bubick lost his no-hitter. Well, it was only in the 6th inning. But, Jeff, look, I'm just here to tell you again. First off, I think they got the call right. It was a hit because he slipped. He went a long way to get a ball and everything else. I don't think that's an error, and he got it right. But just one more time on this, Jeff. I've been an official scorer before. Granted, it was in the minor leagues. And a lot of official scorers have come under fire this year, but I'm here again to defend them. Look, do they get some calls wrong? Yes, happens all the time. Just like everyone else, people get things wrong. However, you don't have any idea how hard that job is until you sit behind that microphone and you're the one that has to decide hit or error. It's a really hard job. You don't get paid very much to do it. And so I'm all for official scorers, especially when they have the courage to change something in that spot. And by the way, Bubic has had an amazing season. He's got a 1.47 ERA, Jeff. He's been their best starting pitcher. He was a really good relief pitcher last year. They made him a starter this year, and he's been absolutely great. And the next time you watch him, Jeff, which may not watch anytime soon, but he really hides the ball really well. And deception is such an important part of pitching, and he does that exceptionally well. So,
and nobody laughs harder at his last name than a bunch of middle school boys.
right. Oh, I'm sure. Right. We've had a few chuckles. You know, we had Scott Blewett a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So there's some funny names out there for sure.
For sure.
Nick Allen of the Braves made an error finally. Shortstop, little guy, really catches the ball on the run with one hand just about as well as anyone in the game today. Such a great defensive player. And I only pointed out he finally made an error. He plays shortstop every day. I had a nice chat with him in Pittsburgh the other day about his glove and how he takes care of it. You know how much I love gloves and everything.
Right.
And he breaks in a glove a year, so he uses one glove per year, as Omar Vizquel used to do. And he only uses his glove in the game, meaning he's not using it in BP. He's not using it to take infield. His gamer is his gamer. And one reason he does it that way is he doesn't want the ball going in there too many times and create an indentation that might make it hard for him to get the ball out of the glove on the double play. It just shows you the precision that especially our middle infielders need when they're trying to play shortstop, second base, anywhere in the big leagues.
You know, when we started this podcast, or I should say before we even started this podcast, we actually were doing a segment called It's a Glove Story. And we couldn't get the rights to Taylor Swift. It's a glove story as the intro of it all. Deaf ears, not a Taylor Swift fan. That's okay.
I know exactly who Taylor Swift is. I know Billy Swift way better than I know Taylor Swift. He had a great sinker, Mariners, others, yes.
So, but we did this segment where, Dad, you would talk about different glove stories surrounding different players, famous glove stories, all of that stuff. I mean, we got to bring it back every once in a while.
My buddy Jeff Bradley, former sports writer, and a really good one of my teammates at Sports Illustrated, he has a company now where he makes baseball gloves for little leaguers. We're going to get him on the show sooner rather than later, and we're going to devote a lot of time to baseball gloves because I love it. The other thing I love from this week, Jeff, is that Alex Cora, the manager of the Red Sox, missed a game in order to go to his daughter's college graduation. And there are people out there being critical of Alex Cora missing a major league game in order to go to his daughter's graduation. Sorry, Jeff. They're playing 162 games. He's allowed to miss a game for such an important family, situation. Am I wrong about this? Am I being too kind?
No, I don't think you're being wrong. You're wrong at all. I think, yes, I understand what this game demands, and especially when you're a manager in Boston or New York, you're going to be under fire constantly. You could win 4 straight, and then you make one bad decision or put in a pitcher who gives up 5 runs and blows the game, and you're the worst manager ever. We got to fire him, right? So I definitely think the work-life balance is so important, and it reminds me of stories our guests have told us about Bobby Cox. Remember when we had Tom Glavine on, and he talked about, Dad, how important it was for Bobby Cox to let the pitchers go play golf in spring training and do these things because he knows, no, it's not that they want to do this. It's going to make them better on the field because it's going to allow them to relax and do other things and work other muscles. I think it's a sign of a great manager.
I think so, too. And, your graduation from Syracuse, you graduated from the Newhouse School, you spoke at graduation. I need to apologize again for not coming to graduation, Jeff. But as you know, I missed it for something really important. So sorry.
Right. Yeah. The Rays were playing the Marlins in the Battle of the Barrel.
No, I wasn't working, Jeff. I shot 79 at Falls Road that day. That's why I missed your graduation. I didn't miss your graduation. Gosh. All right, let's move on to the Kurkjians, okay?
Yeah, actually, Dad, I have a Kurkjian I kind of wanted to kick off.
Let's go.
It's not mine, but it's from Christopher Wong. He is a member of our family who messaged us at Great Game or What. Quite frankly, the website's a great way to get in touch with us, but a lot of people message us on social media, which is really cool, too. He said, apologies if you've already done this, but Dodgers Diamondbacks matchup, and I don't have a date on this, so I apologize. Could be an older message, but when Brandon Pfaadt and Landon Knack faced against each other. It's two guys whose names begin with a silent letter.
All right, we have completely poisoned our listeners when they start looking up stuff like this, and I love it. Now, I would have never thought of something like that, but Jeff, it just proves my point about how beautiful this game is. There are people out there looking for silent letters to start a guy's name in a starting pitching matchup. This is not happening in other sports. I do more of this than probably anyone, and I'm not particularly proud of it, but I'm also not apologizing for it. So I love this. I love this Kurkjian to kick him off.
You know, it's funny because I've been looking at Brandon Pfaadt's name, like, you know, because he's a rotation guy. And I see him up in rotation all the time trying to find my own funny matchup names, and I haven't been able to find one. So I'm glad that this one was found because I think it's great.
It's great. It's great. Okay, more Kurkjians. O'Neill Cruz of the Pirates struck out 4 times out of the leadoff spot. I've been updating this all season, as you know, Jeff. Leadoff guys just aren't built like they used to. O'Neill Cruz is 6'7", and he's got amazing ability. But that is the 14th time this year, Jeff, that a leadoff guy has struck out 4 or more times in a game. That is tied for the record before we get to the month of June. It happened in 2022, 2023, and now again in 2025. So somebody else is going to strike out 4 times out of the leadoff spot, and we're going to have another strikeout record in 2025 because that's the game we played today. And speaking of the Pirates, and we need to update this note, but going into Wednesday's game, they had gone 25 straight games scoring fewer than 4 runs. The record, done 4 different times, last by the Angels in 1969, is 26. So they were only 1 away from the major league record for consecutive games scoring fewer than 4 runs. That just shows you how anemic that Pirates offense has been. And speaking of anemic, the Astros, we used this last week, Jeff, have scored 9 runs in the first inning this season. As a team, 9 runs all year. As we said just recently, Shohei Ohtani has scored more runs in the first inning this year than the Astros have as a team. And then it occurred to me that the Astros against the Reds on May the 10th gave up 10 runs in the first inning. So they gave up more runs in one first inning this year than they have scored all season. Does that strike you as odd?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as a manager, I feel like you got to be thinking to yourself, I gotta shake things up at the top of the lineup here because no one is making any moves to start a game.
Right. And last thing, Jeff, again, another Pirate note. They have a reliever named Tanner Rainey, who's a really good guy, pitched very well for the Nationals for like 5 years. I was talking to him the other day when I did the Pirates game, and he used to drive a scooter from his apartment, his home, whatever, to the ballpark in Washington. And I asked him about his scooter, and he goes, I live right across the river here in Pittsburgh, and I'm getting my scooter delivered. So he's going to drive a scooter to the ballpark now in Pittsburgh. So I checked with Frank at the Elias. He's the first reliever ever to be with 2 different teams, drive a scooter to the ballpark in consecutive years with 2 different teams. Of course, that was a joke, Jeff.
Yeah, I hope they don't have that stat. Although, no. Tito
drove the scooter. Yeah, he's the greatest scooter. And I rode on the back of the scooter once, right?
I know, Dumb and Dumber style.
Dumb and Dumber, it was the greatest. He stole the line, as he always does.
Oh, here, right. You can have a pair of my gloves.
Yes.
My hands are sweating.
Okay, this date in baseball
Sorry,
history.
Mr. Samsonite. Give me your favorite line from Dumb and Dumber. There's so many good ones. So many good ones. I just thought she was an alcoholic.
Right.
When he thought they were meeting in the morning at the bar versus the evening. There's too many good ones.
I know. You completely redeemed yourself. All right.
The town is that way.
That's the best line in the whole movie. Yes. Sorry, Jeff. Oh, God.
And it's at the very end. Sorry, I caught you off guard with the Dumb and Dumber. Dad, I had in my college apartment, I had a picture of Dumb and Dumber on the scooter above my college couch. I mean, it's the most man thing ever to have, most college dorm thing to ever have. But I thought that was like the greatest photo of all time. To imagine you and Tito Francona on the scooter like that. There's video evidence of it from ESPN.
Oh, it's so bad. So bad.
All right, let's jump into on this date in baseball history. What happened?
Okay, 1943, Tommy John was born. And someone asked me the other day, what name comes up more often among pitching, Cy Young or Tommy John? And sadly, the answer is Tommy John, because all the people that have had Tommy John surgery, I believe it was 51 years ago that he had Tommy John surgery. But let's understand, Tommy John was a really good pitcher, won 288 games, and his first shutout of his career came in his second season, May the 3rd, 1964. He beat Robin Roberts in that game. Robin Roberts, who won 286 games in his career. And the point is that game lasted an hour and 34 minutes. That was Tommy John's first major league shutout. Pretty cool. And I love this one, Jeff, and I've used this one a million times. But on this date in 1991, Dennis Eckersley picked off Kenny Williams in a game. And then Dennis Eckersley went 3.5 years without picking anyone off. And then he picked off Kenny Williams again. Now, if that's not the most beautiful, ridiculous baseball note, I'm not sure what is.
I mean, that's what we're here to do, Dad.
Right.
Is beautiful, ridiculous notes.
Right.
And so if you ever have a Kurkjian you want to share with us, you can follow us at Great Game or What on Instagram. You can do it on Twitter. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it on TikTok now, Dad. I know you still have that burner account I haven't deleted yet, so don't follow that
I deleted it. Mark, your brother-in-law, deleted the burner account. It's done. It's over. I got rid of it.
Thank goodness.
Yes,
okay,
thank goodness.
Well, hey, coming
up I was able
up
to
next,
sleep last night, yes.
I know. Coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? Best of all, Tim, the best Minnesota Twins player of all time. Ozzy to Oral will do number 17 and number 18, the best players to wear those numbers. I am a seam head, and then we'll wrap things up for you. That's all coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? Who would you say, Dad, welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What, is the greatest Twins player of all time for the best of all, Tim?
Jeff, I think you missed the memo, but I'm wearing my Did I Ever Tell You That I Went to Walter Johnson High School t-shirt. I thought we were both going to wear these for the episode. Did someone not write in and say they want one of these? We've used this. I've said this line like 1,000 times in my life.
Yeah, this has become
like a joke.
This has become a running joke on the show. Did I ever tell you I went to Walter Johnson High School? We know. And our friend Carl Costner is the one who actually made that shirt for you, Dad. And, he sent them to us kind of at the end of our first season of the podcast. And it's just so fitting that you're wearing it today because, can I guess, are you going to name Walter Johnson as the greatest Twin of all time?
Yes. Now, let's be clear, Jeff. This is the greatest player in the history of a franchise. The Minnesota Twins franchise began with the Washington Senators, who played in Washington from 1901 through 1960, and then moved to Minneapolis. And then, of course, in 1961, Washington, D.C. got an expansion team. So it's ridiculous to say that Walter Johnson played for the Minnesota Twins because he didn't. But the Minnesota Twins franchise is also the Washington Senators from 1901 to 1960. And Walter Johnson, as you know, Jeff, I'm hopelessly biased here, but he's the greatest pitcher of all time. He won 417 games. He had 110 shutouts, Jeff. He had 38 1-0 shutouts in his career. And just for context, the combined shutouts of Pedro Martinez and Curt Schilling is 37. And those are shutouts of any score. So Walter Johnson had more 1-0 shutouts than Schilling and Pedro had shutouts of any score combined. And those guys were really, really good. Walter Johnson also had a 2.17 career ERA. He hit 41 triples, which is the most by a pitcher in the modern era, 1900 on, and 8 years in a row, Jeff. He had a higher batting average than he had an ERA. Think about that for a second.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's who Walter Johnson is. That's where I went to high school. I'm exceptionally proud of that. This is my WJ hat right here, but I can't wear it with my headphones on, and I refuse to wear my hat backwards like you do, because I think you got to be extra cool to wear your hat backwards. And needless to say, Pop-Up is so far from being cool. I am so square, I'm divisible by 4, Jeff. So I'm not going to wear a hat backwards, because only cool people get to do that.
Well, a big shout out to our friend of the show, Carl Costner, for these awesome, awesome shirts. And, Dad, one day if this podcast makes it big, maybe we'll get a merch shop. You know what I mean? Where people who listen, members of the family who listen, they can go on and buy some merch with great sayings like, "Did I ever tell you I went to Walter Johnson High School?"
Yeah.
That would be a great what's some other merch we could create from this show? Is okay, you know what we would do? We would have to put just the names of the 4 best players to never hit for the cycle.
Right.
And just those 4 names, because if you know,
right,
you know.
All right, and then we'll have to list all the greatest players from 1 to 55, from Ozzie to Oral. We'll just put those guys on there. Well, obviously we're going to have to do something about the all-time home run hitters for each letter of the alphabet, because poor Pop-Up, his pathetic life, I can name those off the top of my head, which is not healthy, but I could do stuff like that. So yeah, so those are just some of the T-shirts that we can come up with in the merch department. And I've never used the word merch in my life until just now.
Yeah. I've never heard you say that either. It's kind of feeling like, though, our merch is just going to be statistics on T-shirts.
Yeah, well, maybe we can have some other sayings, but we have to be a little bit more clever than we've been in the first year and a half of the podcast.
And speaking of being clever, Dad, I did ask our listeners to send over any Tim Kurkjian memes that they felt like would fit the vibe. And we got one meme that was created while you were wearing a zoot suit. Do I have that correctly? Doing interviews during the Home Run Derby?
Yes, I was talking to Adrian Peterson, the great running back at the time for the Minnesota Vikings. And I was wearing whatever that is called. I look absolutely preposterous, but I was told I need to wear this. It was a celebrity softball game.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, you had a real glow up. You were the sideline reporter, then you played in it, and then you did play-by-play with me. So You've done it all at this point.
And thank goodness ESPN doesn't have the rights to the celebrity softball game anymore, because I think I wore out my welcome in every way there.
Hey, you met Jamie Foxx. I mean, that was the tops.
Well,
and he knows who you are.
Well, I had a chat with him, and he put me on the phone with his daughter. And I talked to his daughter about free throw shooting, because your sister Kelly made 54 out of 56 free throws. And Jamie asked me to give a little pep talk to his daughter, who was playing basketball. And I explained that Kelly Kurkjian's the shortest kid ever to play high school basketball, and she made 54 out of 56 free throws. So you can accomplish things if you put your mind to it. So yes, I spoke to Jamie Foxx's daughter. That was very cool.
He'll be our guest next week. Just kidding. All right. We're not quite there for Jamie Foxx. From Ozzie to Oral, Dad, the best players at every number. We're on number 17.
Now I really struggle with this, Jeff, because I have this thing about you have to play a certain number of years to qualify. Longevity really matters to me. So at 17, we've got Dizzy Dean, who won 82 games in a 3-year stretch, Jeff, including 30 in one season, 1934. We have Todd Helton, Hall of Famer, just went in a couple years ago. Great player, tremendous defensive first baseman. We have Keith Hernandez, the greatest defensive first baseman of all time. He wore number 17, but I think I'm going to have to break the rules here, Jeff. I think Shohei Ohtani is already qualified as the greatest 17. Am I wrong about this?
I mean, he is a unicorn. He is Babe Ruth.
He is the most remarkable player the game's ever seen. He's won 3 MVPs. I think, with all due respect to Dizzy Dean, Keith Hernandez, and Todd Helton, I think you got to go Shohei already. Am I breaking my own rule or not?
Well, I mean, these are your rules, so we can bend the rules. But I did just get a note from Keith Hernandez. He said, never want to be a guest again on the show.
Remember, we have Keith Hernandez as the greatest number 37 of all time. So we're not exactly dissing him here and putting him behind Todd Helton, Dizzy Dean, and Shohei
Right,
Ohtani.
that's a good point. That's a good point. We should get Todd Helton on the show. But anyway, I think that is a good choice for 17. And because I think he's really also, from a cultural standpoint, changed the game for good. And I know we don't count that, right? But
no,
I think
you should. His
important.
impact on the game is important. All right. Number 18 was really difficult also, Jeff. You know, some numbers are just a piece of cake. 18, I've been going with Johnny Damon all these years that the numbers he put up, his career WAR is really impressive. You know, he got 2,700 hits. We also have Mel Harder. We also have Darryl Strawberry. But I'm going outside the box a tiny bit here and going Moises Alou. 303 lifetime average, 332 homers, 1,287 RBIs, OPS of 885. Moises Alou was a very good and underrated player. Of course, the son of Felipe Alou and the nephew of Dan Patrick's favorite player, Jesus Alou. So I'm going Moises Alou here. And if anyone wants to go Johnny Damon, you got no complaints from me. Even Strawberry, Mel Harder, really good players. But I'm going with number 18, Moises Alou.
I think that's a really good choice. If you agree or disagree, let us know. And, of course, we do this every single Thursday on the show where we bring up more numbers. Dad, remember, speaking of family relations, on Tuesday I brought up Lin-Manuel Miranda and the fact that he was, created Hamilton the musical and In the Heights, and he does music for Disney now. He's super talented. I'm learning, Dad, from the family that's messaged us. So he's making a movie about the three
Molina family.
Molina brothers.
Right.
He's a huge baseball fan, and get this, Dad. Lin-Manuel Miranda confirmed his cousin is Jose Miranda of the Minnesota Twins.
Really? That is so cool. Well, maybe we can get him on the show.
I definitely think we should. I see he does a lot of podcasts, so to talk about his Molina Brothers movie, to talk about Hamilton, which you and I saw touring. Well, we saw it in Chicago, right?
Yes, right.
You don't sound too confident that we're going to get Lin-Manuel Miranda on the show. I'm confident we can get him on the show.
All right. Well, that's great. I can't wait. All right. So this week's theme head is from my friend Bill Chuck, who is a great baseball guy. The stuff that he unearths is just amazing. I stay in touch with him. He comes up with some amazing notes. He's got a newsletter, and he's got Billy Ball. You can find him all over the place. You should subscribe to what he does, because if you love baseball, Bill Chuck has a lot to offer. And
we subscribe. I subscribe on my email to him, and he always has some really great notes. And he also, Dad, is he the one who wants to do the Team Bill against Team Tim and Team Jeff?
Yes. So when we did Team Tim against Team Jeff, and Team Tim won, of course, as I told you.
In 6 games.
Bill Chuck said he's going to come up with Team Bill and clobber both of our teams, which I think is probably true. I'm sure there are a lot of Bills out there who played in the big leagues who are better than our guys.
Here is Bill Chuck's I Am a Seamhead.
Hi, this is Bill Chuck, and I am indeed a seamhead. I live in Sleepy Hollow, New York, at the intersection of players and numbers. While most folks who love baseball like I do love teams or players, I love the great writers and announcers who keep the past and present of baseball moving into the future. I'll be honest, I don't care how long Bill Mazeroski's Game 7 homer went. I just love knowing that it was Yogi, the Yankee left fielder, up against the ivy at Forbes Field watching that ball go over. And when Hank hit his record-breaking homer, the one I still think is the record, it went over Bill Buckner's leaps. It's the stories of baseball that thrill me, Bill Chuck. And yes, I am a seamhead.
Okay, well, thank you, Bill. And I'll stay in touch with you because every once in a while, Bill will just send me a text, an email or something, or call me on the phone with some preposterous thing that he looked up. And I just love it so much. I just love that there are people out there, Jeff, who think the same way that I do and that we do. This is what separates baseball from the other sports. People are looking up Brandon fought against Landon Knack, and they're looking up all the stuff that Bill Chuck looks up. So if you really want to contribute to the show, we are desperately looking for I Am a Seamhead contributions.
Yeah, you can always email me your audio note. Get as seam-headed and nerdy as you would like. You can email me, jeff@greatgameorwhat.com. I will say on the knack, that's what my daughter McKinley calls a snack. Knack. Can I have a knack? Knack. And so every time I see his name, I think of McKinley Hope.
That's great. Well, all right, Jeff. Last thing, make sure everyone tunes in and listens to yesterday's podcast with Jim Deshaies. It was so good. And I'll leave you with this, Jeff. You remember what Jim Deshaies said, like how much he got a kick out of when a position player pitches and everyone on the team laughs, and he goes, it doesn't work this way in other sports. So the other night, the night we talked to him, the Marlins used a position player, Javier Sanoa. He pitched in the game, and he gave up 5 runs in the 9th inning. And get this is how bizarre baseball is. He also got caught stealing in the game. So he's the first player in the last 5 years to give up 5 runs in a game and get caught stealing in a game. And he's the second Marlin ever to do that. Dontrell Willis, a pitcher, of course, did that in 2007. A real pitcher gave up 5 runs in the game and got caught stealing. So Jim Deshaies said, this is what I love, got pitcher position play. And then he got one the night that he told us all about it. I just love it.
The D train. I haven't heard Dontrell Willis in a while. God, I missed that.
Boy, he could hit and he could run, and he was a really good pitcher in his day.
So make sure to go back and listen to Jim Deshaies, because I promise you it's going to be worth your time. And Dad, next week on the podcast, we have the greatest basketball writer of all time, arguably.
Right. No. It's not arguably. Bob Ryan is the greatest basketball writer ever. His nickname is the Commissioner. Because like Peter Gammons was the commissioner of baseball because he's the greatest baseball writer. Bob Ryan is the commissioner of basketball because he's the greatest basketball writer ever. And what other distinction does he have beyond being a huge baseball fan who has encyclopedic knowledge of baseball?
Well, 2 things. One, he has 2 first names. But the most important thing is that this week, this Friday, will be the final episode of Around the Horn on ESPN. So if you recognize that name, Bob Ryan, you might also recognize it from his years as a member of Around the Horn. And so we'll have him on next week, and I'm sure we'll talk memories on that. I guarantee he's going to get emotional about the show leaving ESPN and no longer being a part of the programming. It's sad. It's really sad.
Right. Okay, Jeff. Can't wait for Bob Ryan, and had a great time with you today. Thanks.
Yeah, it sounds like you're getting a phone call. Why don't you pick that up?
I'll
say goodbye to the people.
I got to go pick up Emma at school, and I'm going to be late. That was Mom saying, are you going to be able to get him? So
this is what happens. All right, he's leaving. Thank you for listening. And as always, thank you for being a part of our family. Bye, Pop Pop. He already has his headphones off, and he's already walked off. So this is a good time for me to tell you thank you for listening. And I really appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being a part of our family. Bye.